It's not a matter of if your kid will be victimized, but when. I'm confident enough to say that. This is so much more common than people even know.
This is something that may happen, and maybe you could talk a little more about this portion of it. They'd reach out to a kid on like a video game website, maybe a 13-year-old boy, and they would basically build up a relationship and they'd be like, send me a picture of you naked. And then once they get that picture, they'd be like, we're going to release this to all your family and friends unless you start doing this other compromising stuff. And that stuff could be like, now we want you to like send a video of yourself doing sexual stuff. Or it could be, we want you to abuse your animal, or we want you to scar yourself and stuff. And I'd heard that there's been at least 2 or 3 cases I heard where kids had either been instructed to take their own life or because of the bullying had taken their own life because it was so bad. But like, can you explain a little of that aspect, like how they're weaponizing basically Discord rooms and video games? Like I've heard this about like Roblox and other places where they're targeting young people exactly for this purpose.
Yeah, Roblox is the worst. I played a little role in that whole Roblox debacle with Schlepp because we'd actually been working together because of all the 764 activity on Roblox. And that was when Roblox banned him and created a huge PR nightmare for themselves. It's actually hilarious. I mean, it's not hilarious because Schlepp was really upset about it, and he's a good guy. You know, I had to pep talk him and say like, hey, things happen for a reason. Like this is about to get huge and viral. So, you know, and then that's how you get things to change. Right. So, yeah, Discord, Telegram, and, you know, especially games like Roblox, Minecraft, X, Snapchat, let me put it this way, instead of like going ad nauseum, anywhere that your child can talk to a member of the public is a bad place for kids to be. Anywhere that they can talk to strangers online, these people are there. They are there, right? Not just like, oh, they might see you. No. They are there. They're all over. It's not a matter of if your kid will be victimized, but when. I'm confident enough to say that. This is so much more common than people even know. In fact, you know, I was actually randomly at my local bar one night, and I ended up talking to this man next to me. He ended up being like a criminology professor at a college, and we started having a conversation. And he asked me, "Well, hey, do you ever do anything in sextortion and stuff?" And I told him, "Yeah, I do." And he tells me, "Well, you know, my girlfriend's son was just sextorted last week, and like I need advice." I'm like, this is crazy to me that you can just go sit at a bar and be next to a random stranger that's been affected by this. You could throw a rock in a crowd and hit somebody, right? It's not like 1 out of 10 that like, it's way more common than people think. And it's really, really sad to see it happening. Now for 764, what that might look like is they can walk up to your kid in Roblox with swastikas all over their character, I love CP on their character. Just walk up to your kid and invite them into a Discord chat room. It's that easy. And then once they get the kid into the Discord chat room, they desensitize them with gore, animal abuse, that kind of stuff. Make sure my door is closed.
No problem. And I think I see... I also think it doesn't even necessarily have to be that way. It could be just someone befriending them, like without, and then it.
Yeah.
They take like it could either be overt at the front, or it could be gradual steps to the point where it builds trust and then solicits some embarrassing material or something.
Right, and that's more common with like the scams we're seeing come out of Nigeria. Where those guys will pretend to be teenage females or teenage boys, and they'll get the nudes, and then they'll just extort them for money. So that's actually super common also, and that's so difficult because there's really nothing you can do about it. They can't prosecute those guys. It's very hard. I know that they recently did prosecute a handful of them and extradite them. But, you know, overall, it's going to be really, really hard for them to do anything about that. The best way, and I've said this lots of times, even about the 764 stuff, but the best way to protect your kids is to proactively teach them about this stuff and teach them how to stay safe and teach them what to do if anything happens, and establish that trust and communication with your kids so that they know that they can come to you for help if anything ever does happen. Because a lot of times I'm in the unfortunate position of having to talk to children a lot. And universally, they say, I'm okay with going to the police, but I'm afraid my parents are going to find out. They're more afraid of their parents than anything. And, I've been in situations where I'll try to talk to the kid. Can I talk to your parents? What if I send them an email telling them how brave you are, right? Because a lot of times with the 764 cases, especially without a victim, they won't even open a case against these guys. You have to have a child victim first. So even if we know that they're out there actively extorting kids, if you don't have a specific victim, you don't have a case. So what it really takes is one of these kids to be brave enough to go and talk about it. And that's hard because they're threatening those kids and they're extorting those kids and they're telling them that they're going to kill their whole families if they talk. So yeah, it's a really scary situation. You know what? I can kind of lighten the mood a little bit because I know it's really dark. But, I think that what's always kind of funny to me is watching these guys. Like I watched this guy Acid, the one Cameron Finnegan in the UK who got 9 years. I watched his pudgy ass get pulled out of his house by the cops, crying and blubbering. I'm sorry. This kid looked like he'd never seen the sun. And you look at him and you're like, what a loser. What a fucking little slimy loser. This kid has no friends. It's just a loser. And the thing is that these losers make themselves sound like demons to these kids. They make themselves sound like they're these monsters, scary. The way they're typing and the way they have these voice changers to make them sound demonic. And when they do these things to terrorize these kids, and they're nothing. Once you take them away from the computer, they have no power anymore. So that's the best feeling, is watching them get pulled out of their damn houses where they can never hurt another kid.
Yeah, but it's almost like the unknown is what makes it so intimidating. And you could imagine being like a 14-year-old kid and someone's threatening you with this stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, it's intimidating enough as an adult if someone's threatening you online. And then you're right. Half the time it seems like it's some loser that you're like, what would this guy ever do to, how would he be capable of doing
that's why they don't affect me anymore. Like there's this one guy, what did he say to me? Count your days, you ugly fat slut. I'm taking revenge for Acid. And I'm just like, okay. And they're like, whoa, aren't you scared? I'm like, I'm an adult. I'm a grown-ass woman.
Right.
Like, you're not going to scare me. So they get mad at me. They get mad and they try to swat me or whatever over and over and over and over.
Yeah. So,
but,
on a slightly different, like obviously the same topic, but on the other angle of it. So when we're talking about maybe a kid that they inspired, attempting to inspire to do like a mass shooting or a young adult, are those people that are doing the shootings, are they true believers in accelerationism? Or are sometimes they're weaponized to a different cause and they're going out and doing it for that cause when in reality they didn't even really know that they'd been inspired by these people that are really accelerationists?
It's both. It's definitely both. Like I could give a really good example, like the Tops grocery store shooter, Peyton Gendron, a couple years ago. He had shot a bunch of black people in a grocery store.
Buffalo, is that?
Yeah, the Buffalo one. Yeah. He's the first one we ever connected to one of these satanic communities. That we didn't find that out until 2 years later, that he was actually connected to one of these 764 groups. Which is really, really interesting because I always thought that there was something like that behind it. But he was definitely groomed and coerced by one of these people. And he even calls out the person in his Discord diaries talking to Saint Sandman. I have reason to believe that the FBI and the feds do know who that person is and have questioned him. But honestly, again, the bar is so high, especially if they're not in the US. What are you going to do about it? Right. Now, so that was 3 years ago, I could say, what are you going to do about it? And the answer would be nothing. But now we're starting to see them find creative ways to press charges against these people who are provoking the kids. And so I think with Peyton Gendron, he was told that he would be a martyr for the white nationalist cause. And he really did believe that. But then you saw this like little black neo-Nazi kid from earlier in January. His name was Solomon Henderson. He shot up a school in Nashville. And he had that, I don't know if you remember, but he had this manifesto that was just ridiculous. It was said the N word over and over. It was so silly. And again, the left wing were like, oh, he blamed Candace Owens. And they write a whole fucking article about it, not realizing that that was a meme that goes back to Christchurch. So like, again, people are still falling for the same tired crap. No, I don't believe that a 15-year-old black kid could be a neo-Nazi. That's ridiculous.
Right.
Of course, that's not true. So that kid, I think that he knew a little bit more what he was doing, and the fact that he knew he was trolling. And that's what we call these nihilistic violent extremists. But I think a better word is misanthropic, honestly. I don't like the word nihilism because it's like that has a lot of other connotations, philosophical connotations.
Sure.
Whereas misanthropic is just like, I hate humans, I hate them, and I want to exterminate them all. And that's the idea behind that's what's fueling these new shooters. And that kid, the black kid, Solomon Henderson, I had interacted with him on X before the shooting. And he had been following one of these other mass shooters, the Samantha Rupnow girl, the girl in Madison, Wisconsin from December. And I had sent his information up to the cyber tip, to the FBI, and it wasn't fast enough, I guess.
That's crazy.
It is crazy. What's crazy is that we're seeing these kids before they go on a shooting and going, that kid's going to commit a shooting. Hello, hi, anybody, that kid right there. And you can't do anything because it takes so long to build up these cases. It takes so long to do anything about it with our current system. It's really unfortunate.
Do you think that, like, we live in a world now where, like, you see this Charlie Kirk shooting, right? Yeah. And you see how many people, we're so divided that there are just tens of thousands of people that'll willfully attach their real name to social media saying, yes, that's good. Do you think that makes it, that sort of environment that we live in makes it easier for these accelerationists to take advantage? Because it's like, look, we could just convince people, like, see how bad things are. Look, your enemies are, if you're a right winger and they're trying to weaponize you, your enemies hate white people, or they're satanic, or they're grotesque and it must be taken out. Yeah. Or on the other side, your enemies are fascist and Donald Trump's like, are those sort of the things that they're playing on, that they're trying to like?
But I also think that that the status quo for the accelerationists goes in waves with the political atmosphere. And so right now, like in 2020, during the Biden administration, we saw a lot more of the right wing kind of leaning narratives. And now we're seeing a lot of the left leaning narratives, which means that they're probably going to start targeting these leftist spaces a lot more. And sure enough, we have seen these Antifa spaces and these left wing spaces, transgender spaces being radicalized. I mean, I've seen, and I can't even believe I'm saying this, but I have seen radical transgender militant cells that are out there training at gun ranges and plotting to overthrow the government. It's like, what is happening in 2025? This is crazy. So yeah, I do, and I've seen accelerationists, and I've identified accelerationist provocateurs in those groups. So this isn't just me theorizing. This is me saying, no, I know this person here is an accelerationist, and he's in these groups trying to provoke them to go do the terrorism. So yeah, you can see it happening. It's not something that's necessarily, they're not even really hiding. That's the crazy part. That's what was crazy for me like 3 years ago or so, 3 or 4 years ago, when I started down this road and had everybody calling me insane and she's a nut job, she's a conspiracy theorist. What was so crazy to me is like, it's happening right here. Anyone could see it, anyone could see it happening. And even the experts at that time were starting to go, no, the counterterrorism experts, gotta be careful with that term, but those guys, even they were starting to say, oh, we do see it, but we still want to go on the white supremacy ankle because, obviously.
Right. Yeah, and I think it's easy for political reasons for both sides, as much as I hate to say both sides because I hate the left, but it is easy to shoehorn everything in a nice convenient box. If you're from the left and you could just say, look at those evil white supremacists, or if you're from the right and you could be like, look at those evil Antifa people. Right. It's easy, it's simple, an easy story.